Happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and that's not just coming from me, it's also coming from our Seattle Kraken. They just said it in a slightly different way. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, and a happy Thanksgiving indeed, as the Kraken defeat the San Jose Sharks 7-1. And honestly, it wasn't that close. And with this game... Hold on. What's this? This isn't the normal jersey. That's right, the Winter Classic jerseys are also out, but I'll have a full video going a little bit more into detail on this jersey, also coming out here in the near future. For now, though, let's stick to the R&R. Now, of course, as many of you know, or maybe you don't, I honestly don't say it as often as I probably should, but Kraken R&R stands for Recap and Reaction, although there's an obvious play on words, or play on acronym, I guess, there for Rest and Relaxation, which honestly is kind of what this game felt like and was much needed for Kraken fans. It was finally a game where the Kraken just took care of business and really didn't make it interesting whatsoever. Well, I mean, it was still plenty of fun to watch, at least for a Kraken fan anyway, all the way through. It just wasn't a game that there was really any doubt almost from puck drop how things were going to end up going in this game. And for a fan base who has watched their team cough up lead after lead so far this season, even if they do end up winning some of those games, it was definitely a welcome change. With all that having been said, though, before we jump into this game and have a lot of fun with it as Kraken fans into this Thanksgiving, I do want to take a moment to give a shout out to any Sharks fans that might be watching. I mean, especially if you're a Sharks fan watching this video after having watched that game, a special shout out to you for sticking with this team to this point, a team that was clearly never meant to win very many games. And I mean, I knew it was bad for the Sharks coming into this game, but now after having watched that team play for an entire 60 minutes, oh, it is even worse than I imagined. So yeah, if you're a fan of this team and sticking with them to this point, much less watching this video, my full-on respect to you. And yeah, I really hope that this team can find a way to get something at least respectable out on the ice by the end of the season or next year. At least the draft will be fun. Or, you know, given what happens in the lottery. On the other hand, though, if you're also a 49ers fan, you can stuff it, and I hope the Seahawks do something even worse to the 49ers coming up here later today on Thanksgiving. I wouldn't say I'm expecting that to happen, but I'm certainly hoping for it. Anyway, with all that out of the way, there's probably one more thing that we should get to roster-wise for the Kraken before jumping into this game, and that is that after seeing Grubauer exit after the first period of the game against the Flames and not return, he was slow to the bench in the second period, but did at least return to the bench. We heard after the game that Hackstall said he had sustained some kind of injury through a series of different plays in that first period. We still haven't heard any more update from the team on Grubauer's situation or what injury that might be, but we did see that they called up Chris Drieger from the AHL to back up Decord in this game. We'll see if Drieger ends up playing games, how long Grubauer will be out, but once again, the Kraken lose one of their goaltenders here still in the first couple months of the season. Fortunately, Decord has been playing pretty well, and honestly, I think he's kind of been the better of the two goaltenders, so it'll be interesting to see how Decord does with a significant, I would say, uptick likely in his playing time. Or I guess more frequency of starts. As we do get into the game, though, like I said in the beginning, it was clear from pretty much puck drop that the Kraken were going to have no trouble winning this game, as within the first 20 seconds, Eberle is on a breakaway towards the San Jose net, and although he does end up getting shut down, it wouldn't be too much longer before the Kraken were going to get their second breakaway opportunity. Now, this second breakaway does come after a bit of a sloppy play in the defensive end for the Kraken here still early on, where they let the Sharks get a couple of shots off from the slot, and shots were hard to come by for the Sharks team in this game. So getting two here early was, I wouldn't say worrying, but something to watch at that point anyway. Still, Decord's able to make both of those saves, and then also makes a pseudo save, if you will, on Alexiak trying to shovel it into Decord so he'd freeze it, but ends up bouncing off of Decord back through Alexiak to Wennberg, who makes a beautiful pass still in the Kraken end, actually around the faceoff dot to the left of Decord, through the neutral zone, banking it off of the end boards and catching Tanev in stride on the other end of the ice. Tanev gets, well, partial break here, but still gets around his man up towards the net and then slips it right through the 5-hole and into the back of the net to give the Kraken the 1-0 lead for Tanev, his second of the season, and he's had some pretty good offensive opportunities here since his return after exiting in the first game of the season, but he gets the Kraken off and running with this goal, and they really never looked back from there. And then a few minutes later, on another rush chance off another San Jose turnover, this time it's a 3-on-2 rather than a partial break or even free breakaway for the Kraken. Either way, it's Dumoulin carrying it into the offensive end right down the middle, but he finds, as he's kind of curling out to the side, McCann going right towards the net, and it's a beautiful feed. McCann does have to take a couple of whacks at it, but he's all alone in front of the net and gets it right past Kakinen and into the net to give the Kraken the 2-0 lead. right up until it's challenged for offside, and, well, sure enough, McCann was offside. It really didn't take them that long to review it. Actually, it might have been Eberle that was offside. Either way, it doesn't matter. McCann's goal does get taken off the board, so the Kraken are still only up 1-0. And so with that McCann goal overturned, the Kraken would just have to sit and be okay with that 1-0 lead, at least until the halfway point of the first period. And then not long after we get to that point, the Sharks get back into the Kraken end of the ice, and as though that was kryptonite for them, they allowed Decord to get the puck with all the space he needs around him, and we know how much Decord likes playing it, so he stands up with the puck on his stick in the crease, and then fires off a shot, banking it off of the sideboards once again, almost in the same spot that Wennberg did to get it to Tanev. This time, though, it's Bjorkstrand standing on those boards to have it go off of his stick to Tolvanen right in the center of the ice, entering the offensive end. At the other end of the ice, Tolvanen quickly to Gord. Gord fires off a shot that goes wide of the net, but it bounces off the end boards behind the net, right out to Bjorkstrand, and he buries it into the net to give the Kraken the 2-0 lead, and this time it would stick. Now, unfortunately, because the entire Gord line touched the puck before Bjorkstrand scored, it does mean that Decord doesn't get an assist on this play, but he is the one that started it, and the way he likes to play the puck, eventually he's going to end up with an assist or two as this season goes along, especially if he ends up playing a little bit more here over the next few games with Grubauer's injury. But either way, it was a fun play from start to finish, and the Kraken do now have that 2-0 lead. Of course, though, speaking of kryptonite, as we also know, the 2-0 lead, or heck, just a 2-goal lead in general, has kind of been that for the Kraken so far this season. So the way you solve that is to score a third goal before you can give up one yourself. And 31 seconds later, that's what the Kraken do, as Eberle, down by the side of the net, or actually even slightly behind the net in the San Jose end, throws a pass up into the slot for McCann, but he's surrounded by Sharks. The Sharks defense, well, we'll get to it, but there's 3 Sharks clumped around McCann. Still, it bounces off of a couple sticks, including McCann's, eventually right out to Larson, who's coming down into the play, and Larson fires off a shot, putting it perfectly top corner, getting his first of the season, and giving the Kraken that 3-1 lead. So obviously at this point, things are going pretty well for the Kraken. They have a 3-0 lead hardly halfway through the first period. Meanwhile, at the other end of the ice, even if Decord hadn't made a save yet, the game would still be tied. So yeah, the Kraken have pretty much been dominating things here already, and would continue to do so throughout the first period. By the end of it, I think outshooting the Sharks something like 16 or 17-4. And honestly, it could have been a lot worse than that. There were a few times where the Kraken were starting to kind of overpass a bit, and I mean, it almost looked like they were just trying to get on SportsCenter at a certain point rather than actually try to run up the score, which, I mean, I guess fair enough. And look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Kokkonen had a particularly great time in net for the Sharks in this game. He only lasts the one period for them. But I mean, I don't know what that guy was supposed to do there. He was getting hung out to dry time and time again. Heck, the defense in front of him, most of the time the Kraken were in that end of the ice, it looked like they were on a power play when it was 5-on-5. When the Kraken did get a power play, it honestly looked like it was 5-on-3. Pretty much regardless of what the circumstance was, it looked like the Sharks were somehow playing with one fewer player out on the ice than they actually had. I mean, the longer it seemed the Kraken stayed in the offensive end, the more and more the Sharks would just clump up towards the middle in the slot. Again, I pointed out how they all clumped around McCann in that one instance, and I mean, sure, that is the most dangerous area of the ice that a shot can come from, but at the same time, you probably don't need all 5 of your skaters defending that one little box of ice, especially because there are other dangerous areas that opponents can take shots from, like still inside the face-off dots out to the sides. And the Kraken had all of the space in the offensive zone they seemed to want at any given time. They could skate up to those spots just inside the face-off dots, or even into the high slot to take shots off. Or for that matter, they could just pass it around the outside and look for crossing passes through that clump in the middle, and occasionally they would get them. I mean, I'm genuinely not kidding when I'm saying that I've seen numerous Kraken power plays more well defended, even when they get set up in the offensive end, than the Sharks were doing at 5-on-5. It was that bad, and that's not even to get into how bad the Sharks were when they actually got into the neutral zone and down the ice the other way, where it didn't seem like they could connect a single pass, and almost seemed like they were passing it to Kraken players more often than other Sharks. And again, if you're a Sharks fan, I'm really not trying to be unnecessarily unfair to your favorite team. It's just genuinely really bad, or at least was in this game. And again, that's just credit to you as a fan for sticking with a team that's playing like this. I mean, heck, I made it through the entire inaugural season of the Kraken doing one of these videos after every one of those games, and even I think I would struggle to do that with a team like this Sharks team. I genuinely feel like even the Coachella Valley Firebirds could have held their own against the Sharks team, at least the way they were playing this first period, if not the entire game. So yeah, all that to say, I don't know what Kokkonen was supposed to do in this first period. He just didn't really have a team in front of him. And yeah, he did let in a couple that he probably could have made saves on, but at the same time, he made a couple of pretty spectacular saves on a couple of Eberle shots and also one by Beniers right in tight as well. And I'm probably even forgetting some at that point. And I'll also say for Kokkonen, even outside of how his team was playing in front of him, he faced a couple of pretty unfortunate bounces on top of that. There's already the one that Bjorkstrand scored on that went off of the end boards from one side of the net to the other. That's a tough one for a goaltender. And then all of this entire period, all the Kraken pressure and things not going his way, leads to the fourth Kraken goal. It comes off of a one-time pass, well, it was intended to be a pass, from Gord. Borgen throwing it down to Gord along the goal line. Gord trying to get it to the other side to Tolvanen, but before it can get to Tolvanen, it goes off the inside of the knee of Kokkonen through the 5-hole and into the net to give the Kraken that 4-0 lead that they would carry into the first intermission. I suppose I should mention that the Sharks did have a power play that almost perfectly 1 minute on each side spanned this first intermission, but they really don't do anything with it. So we get into that second period and through the rest of the power play, the Kraken kill it off without any trouble. And then in this second period, well, I don't know if it was the Kraken just having mercy on the Sharks, trying to get too cute with passes, or letting their foot off the gas like we've seen them do even against good teams throughout this season. Or maybe some combination of all of those. But this second period features 5 shots on goal between both teams. 4 for the Kraken and 1 for the Sharks. Fortunately for the Kraken, one of those shots on goal comes on a power play that they get early on in the second period, and it's McCann skating up in that same play that they've always liked to set him up for, where he's at that, for the goaltender's point of view, right face-off dot, I guess from the Kraken point of view, left side of the offensive end. Either way, the side that we all are used to McCann shooting from, he gets the pass, skates up, fires off a shot, and it's a laser into the far top corner to give the Kraken the 5-0 lead. And then the rest of the way, they proceed to really not let the Sharks touch the puck. They don't really do that much with it themselves, as they only get 3 more shots on goal the rest of the period. But they did pretty much just maintain possession and I guess kill off 20 minutes of clock. Oh, and actually one more thing in this second period before we move on to the third. I don't know how I almost forgot this. It's easily the most exciting part, or I guess second most exciting part to the McCann goal. But in the last couple of minutes, there's a play along the boards where one of the Sharks players tries to lay a reverse hit on Tanev that wasn't a particularly good hit. Again, you're losing at that point 5-0. The game's out of hand. I guess it's frustration at that point. There's a lot to be frustrated if you're on the Sharks roster. Either way, he takes what you could maybe see as a cheap shot on Tanev. He kind of dodges it a bit, but still gets clipped, and they definitely exchange words at each other. Tanev not very happy about it at all. And I don't know who proposed it at first, but they both go at each other. Tanev quickly takes him to the ice, but then picks him right back up and starts wailing on him. The crowd absolutely loves it. The refs step in right away because as soon as somebody hits the ice in a fight like that, they are supposed to jump in and break it up. Tanev still gets a couple more good swings in before they're able to get there. Easily a fight that he wins, and yeah, a little bit more fun. And once again, good to see a Kraken player sticking up for, well, I guess in this case himself, but either way, sending that message that that kind of hit is not going to be tolerated and will face some kind of fisticuff punishment. So we head to the third period with the Kraken holding a pretty safe 5-0 lead against a team that's only scored 5 goals once this season, and beyond that had only scored 3 goals 4 other times, so they're not a team that scores a whole heck of a lot, and certainly are not likely to do it in one period. And even the slimmest possible chances of a comeback get all the much harder when early on in this third period, the Kraken score for a 6th time. And once again, it's a bit of a fortunate bounce that helps get them there. They still get set up in the offensive end and are passing the puck around like San Jose doesn't even have defense. And eventually it's Bjorkstrand who fires off the shot from up by the blue line, right down the middle. Tolvanen gets a stick on it to tip it on net, but it doesn't actually go on net. It goes well above the net off the end glass. And this is where the lucky bounce comes in, because it goes right then to the side of the net out back in front where Tolvanen is standing. He takes one whack at it. It goes off the shoulder of Blackwood and into the back of the net to give the Kraken that 6-0 lead. And of course, in classic Kraken fashion, at this point they're sitting on a 6-0 lead with 6 different goal scorers. And eventually we get into the final few minutes where pretty much all that's left for the Kraken to do is to help Decord get his shutout. Unfortunately, they were not able to do that, and I will say, as a small criticism to the Kraken in this game, the few times that they did allow the Sharks to get chances in their end of the ice, they made them kind of dangerous. I mean, there were at least a number of occasions that if the Sharks had even an NHL style roster, even if it wasn't a good one, like say the Blackhawks, they probably would have scored on a couple of them, and this wouldn't be a 1-goal game that they have. But in the end, they aren't able to take advantage of very many of those situations, right up until this one. It's another kind of broken play in the defensive end. The Kraken playing a bit lazy and sloppy in their end of the ice, and it's a puck that goes well wide of the net. I think it was tipped wide of the net. Either way, it's similar to how the Kraken scored that second one for Bjorkstrand, but a little bit more widened out, if you will. It goes off of the end boards to the other side, and it's an easy shot into a pretty much wide open net, so the Sharks get that one and break up the shutout to make it 6-1. But right away off the ensuing faceoff, as though the Kraken were determined to win by 6 goals for whatever reason, they create a turnover in the neutral zone, one of, again, many for the Sharks in this game. It turns into a one-on-one chance for Tolvanen back the other way. He does have one Sharks player in front of him, but he fires off a shot that goes through that Sharks player and through the goaltender into the back of the net. Within 15 seconds of the Sharks scoring, the Kraken get another one, Tolvanen his second of the game, to make it 7-1, and that is where the score would finish. So the Kraken take care of business. They also probably exercise a little bit of frustration that they've had, at least offensively so far this season. Get a few guys multi-point games. Alexiak had a couple assists. Tolvanen had 2 goals and an assist. Bjorkstrand had a goal and 3 assists. So a pretty good night for a lot of guys. Even the guys that didn't get on the board, obviously that Gord line getting a lot of the points in this game from the forward end. But the Beniers line looked pretty good. Eberle had a couple of chances that he just couldn't get to go, because apparently the only way Eberle's going to score is if some sort of wizardry is involved. Just straight up good shots aren't going to do it for him. Beniers got denied in tight a couple of times and also on the power play. So there was a lot to like from the Kraken in this game. At the same time, it's hard to take too much away from it because the opponent that they were playing, again, most of these guys are probably AHL players that are playing at the NHL level because the Sharks just don't have that many rostered NHLers. That being said, though, what the Kraken can take away from this game is 2 points in the standings that, again, they desperately need everyone they can get at this point. It does bring them back to NHL 500 with an 8-8-5 record, which thankfully, at least at this point anyway, for the Kraken, because of, well, as I pointed out in the last R&R after the Flames game, outside of the top 3 teams in each division, the rest of the Western Conference does not really seem to have much interest in pushing for a playoff spot. That NHL 500 record of 8-8-5 is enough to give the Kraken not only a playoff spot with the point total that they have, but also a playoff spot by points percentage, which again, like I pointed out in that one, does mean that they have, based on the last few years of history, somewhere between a 75 to 80% chance of making the playoffs. That having been said, 82 points, which is what they're on pace for right now with that NHL 500 record, is probably not going to get them in the playoffs. You'd have to think eventually 1 or 2 teams here in this wild card grouping would make a run and at least get to somewhere in the low 90s. But that could very well end up being the Kraken. We'll just have to wait and see. At least for now, they are in that spot, and thanks to the help of a lot of other teams, the Ducks losing tonight in particular, they are, even with that slow start to the season, in a good spot to make that push for the playoffs. And I suppose in that vein, for what it's worth, as Hackstall pointed out after the game, the Kraken have now gotten at least points out of 7 of their last 9 games, even if a couple of them were somewhat frustrating how they got those points. Either way, the point is, no matter how it's happened, somehow, someway, the Kraken have managed to get themselves in a pretty decent spot in the standings, and the rest of the season is up to them. It's very much in their hands to get into those extra games at the end of the year. And of course, finally, before we move on from this game and into Thanksgiving, as well as I'll have a video about that jersey coming out here in the not too distant future. I don't know if I'll be getting it recorded here tonight, so probably look for that sometime on Friday, if not sooner. Either way, we still have to get to the Kraken 3 stars from this game, as there are clearly plenty of guys to choose from in a game like this one. Even if the opponent wasn't great, there's lots of Kraken players that did play very well. And as always, the Kraken 3 stars are brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon. If you do want to be a part of helping decide the Kraken 3 stars after each and every one of the Kraken games this season, or sometimes if there are stars, you can help support this channel a little bit more than you already are by watching to this point by going through the link down below to Patreon and supporting over there as well. And with the 3 stars, the first star is gotta be Oliver Bjorkstrand. Again, he's got the goal and 3 assists, so great night from him. Ellie Tolvanen, easily a 2nd star, 2 goals and an assist, plus that third line, that Gord line, was just fantastic in this game, creating most of the offense for the Kraken. Again, the Beniers line did a fair amount of that themselves. Tanev had a goal for that second line. Even the fourth line had their moments as well. They just weren't able to get on the score sheet. But in the end, I'm going to have to save honorable mentions probably for a number of those guys, because with this third star, I'm going to go with the big rig once again. He has 2 assists in this game, even if one of them might have been a bit accidental. Still, he continues to play fantastic hockey for this team, especially in the defensive end. He, I would argue, might be the best defensive defenseman the Kraken have had so far to this point. He's there with Larson, definitely in that argument. Still creating offensively as well, just has the 2 assists in this game. But even outside of the points that he gets here and there, he's also been pretty good at just moving the puck up the ice through transition. And yeah, just a generally good 200-foot game from Alexiak so far this season. Hopefully that continues, but third star for him. Honorable mentions, if I had to limit it to just 3, which is already hard in its own right, Decord comes up that 1 away from a shutout. Tanev, obviously, with the goal to open things up for the Kraken as well as the fight. And Gord for being a part of that line that really did drive a lot of the offense that actually found the back of the net for the Kraken in this game. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below, who your 3 stars would be. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some different options down there. And in general, just how we're feeling about the Kraken here on Thanksgiving of 2023, what you're thankful for about this team. We can keep it upbeat. Obviously, a 7-1 win feels pretty good, but yeah, might as well be positive here on Thanksgiving and be thankful for what this Kraken team has given us, even if there has been some frustrating moments here early on as well. But with that, if you have made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. I know I say that at the end of every video, but I genuinely do mean it. Thank you very much for supporting this channel, supporting what for me is kind of a dream, being able to cover a team like this, even if it's, you know, in my own way here on YouTube. But I'm thankful for each and every one of you that watch, like, comment, subscribe, whatever, however you're involved in this community that we have here, this little Kraken community. I'm genuinely thankful for all of you. So from me and my family, happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Even if you're not celebrating Thanksgiving, if you're not in the US, just happy Thursday, I suppose. And I'm still very thankful for you as well. Until next time, though, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken.